Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're jumping into one of the biggest topics in the world of construction. We are going to do a complete overview of Clause 3 from the FIDIC Red Book 2017, and we're basing all of this on the incredible textbook, Guide to the FIDIC Conditions of Contract for Construction by Michael D. Robinson. Now, my promise to you is simple. We're going to break this down so it's super easy to understand, exciting, and crystal clear. It's going to be like explaining it to a 10-year-old. You ready? Let's do this.
So let me ask you something. When you look at a massive skyscraper or this incredible bridge stretching across a river, do you ever stop and think, who is the secret superhero holding it all together? You know, the one making the tough calls and making sure the entire mission doesn't go off the rails?
Well, let me introduce you to that hero, the engineer. And in this explainer, we are going to break down their incredibly important role. Seriously, forget all the dry, complicated legal stuff. We are going on an adventure to understand the powers, the duties, and the responsibilities of the single most important player on the project.
So, here's our roadmap for today. First, we'll meet our project's hero. Then we'll dig into their superpowers, what they can actually do. After that, we'll see how they build their super team. Then we'll look at their biggest challenge, what I'm calling the ultimate judgment call. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with a mission debrief to make sure you've got all the key info locked in.
All right, first things first. Who exactly is the engineer, and how did they get this incredibly important job in the first place? So, in the simplest terms, the engineer is chosen by the employer. That's the person or company who owns the project. And this isn't just one person, it could be a whole company of experts. Their main job, their whole mission, is to manage the contract and keep a close eye on all the construction work to make sure it's done right.
And check this out. Getting the engineer on board early is an absolute game changer. Think about it like picking the captain of your sports team before the game even starts. It lets the contractor know exactly who they're dealing with, it stops important design details from getting lost in translation, and it keeps the people who design the project connected to the people supervising it. It just makes everything run so much smoother. Okay, now for the really cool part. What can the engineer actually do? Let's talk about their duties, their authority, and what we're going to call their project superpowers.
Now, this is probably one of the biggest changes, and it's so important to understand. The engineer got a massive power-up in the 2017 Red Book. See, in the old days, they often had to go running to the employer to get permission for big decisions, but now they have way more independence. They can act like a fair, neutral referee between the employer and the contractor. And this is a huge deal because it makes decisions faster and helps stop small arguments from blowing up into massive problems.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. This quote is straight from the contract, and it's crystal clear. When it comes down to that super critical job of making a fair decision on a claim, the engineer does not need the employer's okay. They have the authority to make the call themselves. That's real power.
No, to make sure there's no chaos on a busy construction site, the rules are very clear about who gives the orders. The contractor only listens to official instructions from 3 sources: the engineer, their on-site representative, or an assistant who has been officially given that power. That's it. Nobody else.
But of course, even a superhero can't be in 100 places at once, especially on a huge construction project. And that's exactly why they need to assemble a super team to help out. And first up is the engineer's most trusted sidekick, the engineer's representative. Think of this person as the Robin to the engineer's Batman. They're on the site full-time, acting as the engineer's eyes and ears and taking care of business right where the action is happening. But, and this is a big but, some superpowers are just too important to hand off to someone else. The engineer has to personally handle that ultimate judgment call, making a determination. And they also have to be the one to issue a formal notice to correct if something's not being built correctly. Those decisions rest on the engineer's shoulders, and their shoulders alone. And that brings us to the main event, the engineer's biggest, most challenging, and most critical responsibility. We're talking about Subclause 3.7, Agreement or Determination. This is where the engineer has to step up and be that fair, neutral referee when there's a disagreement. Okay, I know this looks like a lot of steps, but it's actually a really logical process designed to be totally fair. Here's how it works. Step 1, the engineer tries to get both sides to just talk it out and agree. If that doesn't work, step 2, the engineer steps in and makes their own fair decision, called a determination. Then, a 28-day countdown starts. If nobody says anything in those 28 days, boom, the decision is final. But if someone disagrees, they can issue what's called a notice of dissatisfaction, and the whole thing gets passed up to the next level, the Dispute Adjudication and Avoidance Board. See? It's a clear path.
Whew, all right, you have just absorbed a ton of information about our project hero, the engineer. So let's do a quick mission debrief to make sure the most important stuff really sticks. And you know what that means? It's pop quiz time. Let's see what you've learned. No pressure.
Okay, question number 1. True or false? In the 2017 Red Book, the engineer always has to get the employer's approval before deciding on a claim. What do you think? Lock in your answer.
And for question number 2, what is that one critical superpower, that one ultimate responsibility that the engineer is absolutely not allowed to delegate to their team?
All right, pencils down. How did you do? The answer to number 1 is false. That's the huge change in the 2017 book, remember? They have independent authority. And for number 2, the one power they can never delegate is making that final determination. I bet you got them both right.
Okay, so if you forget everything else from today, please remember these 3 things. Number 1, the engineer is an impartial manager for the project, not just a messenger for the employer. Number 2, the 2017 Red Book gives them real, independent power to make fair decisions. And number 3, that whole process for sorting out claims is a clear, structured, step-by-step path designed to be fair to everyone. So, we've met our project's hero. But you know what they say? Every hero needs a great counterpart. So get ready, because in our very next explainer, we're diving into Clause 4 to meet the contractor. And I'll leave you with this little thought to chew on. Now that you really understand this crucial, impartial role the engineer plays, how does that change the way you look at all those massive construction projects you drive by every day? And that's a wrap. Hey, if you found this explainer useful, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. If you didn't, the dislike button is right there too. We'd love to hear any questions or thoughts you have in the comments below. And most importantly, make sure you subscribe and follow so you do not miss our next mission when we tackle Clause 4, the contractor. Thanks so much for watching.